Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Morning Ramble. And today's ramble is a response to some very funny comments we got. We posted a cartoon to Facebook yesterday, and it's a cartoon image that shares a quote from one of my books, The Inside Out Revolution. And the quote, out of context, is, "When it comes to life, you're not the pilot, you're the plane." And there were a number of comments going, "Who the fuck is the pilot? Who's flying the plane? Ah!" And I wanted to give some context to the quote because I think it'll make more sense in context. And by way of context, there are sort of three paths that people tend to walk through life. And one is the path of the victim. And when you're walking the path of the victim, you feel helpless. You feel like nothing you can do will make any difference, so there's not much point in doing anything. And then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that kind of learned helplessness is what used to let them, take a baby elephant and hold it in the ground with a wooden stake. And then even when the elephant could lift not just the wooden stake out of the ground, when it's full grown, it could lift houses, it will stay tethered to that stake because it's learned that it's helpless. And when we're on the path of the victim, and none of us are on it on purpose, we tend to not do too much, or we do a little towards our goals, but we there's no point in doing a lot because it's not going to work out anyways. And sometimes we do like extreme crazy acts because we're so frustrated at the futility, the perceived futility of what we do. So what happens to a lot of people who've been stuck on the victim path for a while is they hear about the empowered path. If it's to be, it's up to me. And that's very exciting. If you've been feeling helpless, now you feel empowered. You feel like, well, actually there are things I can do, and it's not what happens, it's what I do with what happens. And if life gives me lemons, I'm gonna make lemonade. And I would say the large majority of books on how to have a better life are built around the empowerment model, that you can, and if you believe in yourself, you will. But the empowered path, while obviously more productive, generally speaking, than the victim path, is not really the way we're designed. There's a third path, and I sometimes call it the path of the soul. And that is where you are guided from within. You're lit from within. You are not making things happen, but you are intimately involved in them happening. It's just that the motive force, the force that is in charge, is a deeper wisdom inside you. For religiously minded people, they would say, God is my co-pilot, but I think it's actually more accurate to say, I'm God's co-pilot. I'm this deeper wisdom's co-pilot. I'm not the one steering, but I'll sit in the cockpit and I'll take over when I need to. And that sort of third path, if one is the victim and one is empowered, the third path we could call the Enlightened Path. That was what I was pointing to when I was talking. I was teaching on Supercoach Academy, one of the early Supercoach Academies. And one of our students was an officer in the Air Force. And he was young, but he was super determined to make things happen. And he was really frustrated with himself that the things he was trying to make happen weren't happening, and the choices that he was making weren't turning out. And he needed to make better choices and be more decisive and be more like this and less like that. And I finally just said to him, hey, hang on. You're not, in life, you're not the pilot. You're the plane. We are the vehicle through which the creative force expresses itself. We are the vehicle through which life lives, through which the formless energy, the spiritual energy that we are made of, comes into form. And in the book, I call the chapter where I talk about this the paradox of no choice. Because as a victim, you feel like you have no choice. And when you're empowered, you feel like you have choice. But when you're following the path of the soul, it kind of feels like you have no choice again because it's so obvious what to do. You're being guided every step of the way. And you could say no. You could exercise what some scientists have called your free won't, which is the suggestion that thoughts come to mind unbidden, but we might have some say in which ones we follow. So we don't have free will, but we have free won't. But ultimately, why would you go against yourself? Why would you choose to not do what you're guided to do? At which point, once again, like being a victim, you have no choice, but it's a completely different quality of no choice. It's a beautiful no choice. It's not needing to choose because what there is to do is so obvious and apparent most of the time. Have fun, learn heaps, and happy exploring.